Are you exhausted from always chasing, but still haven't truly learned to choose? I'm Nyra Elowyn, and maybe today you'll realize that the right silence is worth more than 1,000 declarations of love. Today, you'll understand how quiet change can redefine love, and you'll learn 7 habits that restore presence, clarity, and dignity without asking for permission. Emotional silence as a strategy for clarity, not punishment. You talked too much. Tried to explain with words what only your absence could express. You insisted on communication as a form of salvation, when in truth, what you needed was silence. To hear yourself. The trap is subtle. You speak, hoping he'll understand. Hoping that by voicing your pain, something will shift on his end. But here's the truth. Someone who doesn't want to listen never will. And the more you explain, the more he gets used to tuning you out, because he knows you'll repeat it all tomorrow. This urge to explain comes from the anxiety of needing validation, as if naming your pain would finally earn it a place in his heart. But it doesn't. It echoes, and it weighs you down, the burden of trying to convince someone who's never been open to receiving. You believed conversation was a bridge, and sometimes it is. But in one-sided relationships, too much talk becomes a rope, the kind that keeps you tied to the illusion that if you're just clear enough, he'll finally stay. But the problem was never your clarity. It was his lack of listening, and it's time to tell the difference between 2 types of silence: his, which ignores, and yours, which sets you free. You wrote long paragraphs trying to explain what he never made the effort to read. You explained yourself until your voice faded, and in the end, you felt like you disappeared trying to be understood. Stop using your voice as a shield. Start using your silence as a compass. Because when a woman goes quiet by choice, not defeat, she shifts the entire room without raising a single argument. No, silence is not punishment. It's recalibration. It's when you stop begging to be understood by someone who never tried to understand. Practical exercise. Take 72 hours. No justifying. No over-explaining. No sharing emotions with someone who hasn't shown active listening. Just observe. You'll see that half the things you used to say were just attempts to keep a dying connection on life support. It's not about disappearing. It's about returning to yourself before you lose yourself again trying to be decoded. Speak to yourself before asking someone else to interpret you. Because too many women have become emotional dictionaries, always ready to explain their worth, when what they really needed was to turn the page. You're not being cold. You're choosing to focus. You're done begging for attention. You're cultivating presence. When you stop chasing someone who won't listen, you finally start hearing what your intuition was whispering all along. You weren't misunderstood. You were ignored. And that changes everything. Redefining. Caring. From overgiving to conscious giving, you learn to love by serving. To care as proof. To give as if you were silently begging. Please stay. And without realizing, you confused love with constant presence, with full availability, with emotional readiness no one asked for, but everyone took. This woman who does it all, who listens, anticipates, fixes, holds, who shows up uninvited just to be useful. She's not loving, she's disappearing. And the scariest part? She doesn't even notice, because society romanticizes. This kind of giving is strength. They say she's intense, generous, a real woman. But here's the raw truth. No one values what is always there. Too much care becomes emotional doormat. And you don't even realize when you stopped being seen as a woman and started being seen as support. You've heard this. You're too much for me. And you thought it was a compliment. But it was a warning. You've been caring for someone who never cared for himself, let alone you. You gave him everything, and then wondered why he gave you nothing? The answer is brutal, but simple, because you never required anything back. You confused love with sacrifice, and he just watched while you sacrificed yourself alone. Stop trying to save someone who's drowning on purpose. Saving is not loving. It's infantilizing. It's putting yourself on a pedestal no one asked, for data no one wants to be rescued from, and worst of all, it distracts you from the only person you can and must save, yourself. Your strength isn't in how much you endure, it's in how well you discern. It's in pausing to ask, the person I'm caring for, are they caring for me? Try this now. Your emotional reciprocity. Map list all the things you emotionally give. Mark which of them you receive in return. See where there's mutuality and where there's only consumption. Emotional math doesn't lie. And when you look at it with loving clarity, something inside you starts to pull back. Because conscious care means giving without draining. It means knowing where you end and where the other person needs to grow. You can love someone and still stop caring for them. Love is not emotional parenting. It's partnership, it's mutuality, it's presence with return. You don't need to become an absence to be noticed, but you do need to stop being constantly available in order to be respected. The one who cares too much for others forgets to be cared for by herself. Presence rituals. How emotionally intelligent women create space before creating attachment. You give yourself away too fast. Not out of neediness, but out of habit. Because of that internal urgency that confuses excitement with connection. It's his smile, his attention, his message. And suddenly, you're imagining a whole future together. The dopamine kicks in, your heart races, and your brain, addicted to emotional rewards, starts projecting. What isn't even real yet, what feels like chemistry, might just be anxiety in disguise. A cocktail of fear of loss and desperation to finally be chosen. But emotionally intelligent women don't confuse intensity with intimacy. They take a breath before they offer themselves. They create space. They test the season before they plant seeds. Because real love doesn't grow in impulse. It needs time, soil, and silence. You've been confusing vibe with reciprocity. And every time you act too fast, you form a bond with no structure. You give your whole presence to someone who hasn't even chosen to stay. That's when it all cracks. You start demanding consistency in a relationship that barely began. You build expectations from someone still stuck in curiosity. You offer yourself completely to someone who only asked for a sip. Sound familiar? Here's a ritual to try, the 5 days of selective presence. Before any emotional investment, wait 5 days. 5 days of watching, not declaring. 5 days of holding back plans to impress. 5 days of sensing the other person's true energy, not the one you idealized. During this time, ask yourself, does he create space or just take up mine? Does he invite or do I volunteer? Does he invest or simply respond? That tiny delay changes everything, because pause is power. A woman who knows how to wait hears more truth from reality and less noise from her own anxiety. It's not about playing games. It's about rehearsal. Not for a perfect love, but for your own center. Presence is the highest form of rehearsal, because someone who can't handle your company won't survive your absence either. You're not a public garden for anyone to walk through. You're sacred ground, and you bloom for those who honor the season. Don't give yourself quickly. Observe yourself slowly. 4. Stop being the answer. Become the question. The end of emotional predictability. You answer everything. Always have an explanation, a reason, a reaction. He disappears, you ask. He returns, you receive. He messes up, you try to understand. You became the answer. And when a woman becomes predictable, she loses her mystery. She loses the power of uncertainty. She loses the magic of being an enigma and becomes a manual. The problem isn't being transparent. It's being emotionally available before being emotionally recognized. It's offering presence before receiving it. It's always being ready, even when he never is. Emotionally unavailable men feed off your rush for clarity. They know you'll explain, you'll ask, you'll insist. That's why they don't change. The script is safe. And you, predictable. But you can be intense without being fully given. You can be deep without being wide open. You can be accessible without being predictable. It's time to apply the intentional delay cycle. Rule: no impulsive responses. Only reply after your emotions pass through the filter of truth. And the truth is simple. If you have to chase clarity, there's no real connection. Be less immediate, more selective. Don't be the woman who answers everything. Be the woman who causes silence. The one whose silence isn't neglect, it's direction. You're not a fixed menu. You're the surprise course at a rare restaurant. And only those with emotional taste get to read it. Resisting the urge to clarify is a gesture of power, because what needs too much explaining already started wrong. Being a question means allowing yourself to be discovered. Being an answer means giving yourself before being sought. It's not about hiding. It's about not offering yourself to someone who never tried to look for you. You're not predictable. You were just misplaced. Choosing requires feeling and not running. From the discomfort of waiting, you want to choose, but without the risk of not being chosen back. You want autonomy, but you're still afraid of silence. You want self-love, but only if it ensures he'll notice. You want to let go, but only if you're sure he'll come running back. But real choosing requires feeling. Feeling the discomfort of absence, the emptiness of no response, the anxiety of not controlling the ending. But you've learned to fill that space with movement. You chase so you won't have to feel the no. You anticipate to avoid rejection. You offer too much too soon because you're afraid to face the truth. He might not choose you, but chasing isn't strength. It's protection. It's your subconscious trying to avoid the abandonment that's already happening. You just don't want to see it. The truth is, you're not afraid of being alone. You're afraid of realizing it was only ever you trying, and then everything you did will feel like it was for nothing, but it wasn't, because every time you give genuinely, you don't lose. You gain the chance to walk away with dignity, even if you weren't chosen. Practical exercise. Write the letter you'll never send. Put in everything you wanted to say, but don't write it to him. Write it for yourself, to empty your chest, to clear the attachment, to hear yourself clearly. It's in the waiting that true choice matures. It's in the absence that attachment reveals itself. And it's in the pain of not being chosen that you finally learn to choose yourself. It's not about deserving. It's about resonance. Love can't be forced. It must be felt. You're a magnet, but you only attract what aligns with your frequency. It's not effort. It's alignment. Don't rush. Don't give before you feel the presence on the other side, because choosing is a risk, but not choosing is a prison. The woman who stops running from discomfort starts choosing with truth. Emotional autonomy isn't coldness, it's focus. You don't need to be cold to be strong. You don't need to act indifferent to stop hurting. But that's what a lot of people do. They pretend they don't care, don't feel, that everything's fine. They build emotional armor that protects, but also isolates. But strength is not the absence of emotion. It's the presence of awareness. It's knowing exactly where you choose to place your attention, and therefore, your energy. Focus shapes everything. If you wake up thinking about him, review every message, track every absence, wait for every move. Your whole life revolves around a presence that doesn't even exist. You're feeding your lack with focus. And the more you feed it, the more it becomes a habit, an identity. But you can train a different muscle: selective presence. Practical. Technique: the focus journal. Every day write, where is your emotional attention today? Does it nourish you or drain you? What would you be doing if you weren't busy with this void? Neuroscience has proven the brain changes with repetition and intention. Neuroplasticity creates new emotional patterns, but it starts with micro-choices. Every time you choose not to check, not to reply, not to explain, you're training your autonomy, and autonomy isn't isolation. It's recentering. It's knowing that even when you feel, you get to choose how and when to feel. You don't have to pretend it doesn't hurt. You just need to choose where you'll bleed. And more importantly, for whom it's worth healing. You're not a cold woman. You're a lighthouse. You shine with presence, not with pursuit. And only those who see, stay. When you change your focus, you change the bond. When you change the bond, you break the pattern. You don't have to chase anything. You just have to stop looking where there were never eyes to see you. Self-love as a state of presence, not performance. Self-love has become a slogan, an Instagram caption, a quote with soft music behind it, but real self-love doesn't need applause. It needs silence. It doesn't need to be seen. It needs to be lived. And that's where many get lost. They confuse self-esteem with performance. They post indirect quotes to look strong. They make big changes to prove they've moved on. They show a smile to cover up the tears. But true self-love doesn't scream. It chooses, in the dark. When no one's watching, when the urge to explain takes over, but you stay quiet. When he reads your message but doesn't reply, and you don't react. When longing hits, and you don't chase it. You don't have to look okay. You just have to be at peace with how you feel. And decide firmly what to do with the pain. Acknowledging your wound doesn't make you weak. Denying it does. There's a quiet ego in playing the victim. A comfort in saying, I always give too much. But still, giving, breaking that cycle requires presence. And presence without distraction. No social media, no justification, no audience. Exercise, 10 minutes a day, just with yourself. No phone, no music, no expectations, just presence. In that silence, you begin to truly hear yourself. And what rises isn't pain, it's clarity. Real story. She stopped posting. Vague quotes. Stopped searching for answers in his behavior. Started writing to herself. First a sentence, then a paragraph. Today, she's writing her own story. She dresses for herself, even when no one's looking. And little by little, she attracts those who don't need to be convinced, only invited, because the woman who lives self-love as presence never begs for space. She creates it, and only those with the maturity to inhabit it stay. Self-love isn't a stage, it's direction. If today you realize that chasing only exhausts you, and choosing begins with a silent no, what's stopping you from taking that step? If this message resonated, click subscribe. It's your way of saying, I'm ready to choose differently. And tell me in the comments, which of these habits will you start practicing this week? I want to read your decision. Before you go, watch the video on the screen. It's the direct continuation of this journey. It'll show you how to turn your absence into respect, without yelling, without begging, and without losing yourself. Your turning point begins in silence, but it needs direction.